New money. Welcome now, Democratic Congressman Ted Lieu of California. So, Congressman, thank you so much for joining us. We're all operating a little bit in the dark here. We don't have all the details, but tell us what you know about where we are.
Thank you for your question. We know that the Bipartisan Senate group has reached agreement on the major issues, including a infrastructure package that's going to include $65 billion for broadband, as well as about $550 billion in new spending and $1.2 trillion over 8 years. We're going to look at the details in the House, and it still has to pass the Senate, but this overall looks like good news.
So, Congressman, going into this, we talked to various lawmakers who said if that group of 10 senators, Republicans and Democrats, come up with something they agree with, it's going to be pretty likely to make it through the Senate and ultimately the House. Do you agree with that assessment?
I do agree. Now, at the same time, the Senate and House are also working on an approximate $3.5 billion package that goes through reconciliation that will address issues related to health care, to making the child tax credit permanent, workforce retraining, and so on. So we've got two packages, but we're glad that there seems to be agreement on the first one.
What's your understanding, Congressman, if you have one, about the relationship between those two packages? Because we've heard different things. From the Republican side, you say they're entirely separate. We've heard from Nancy Pelosi, the Speaker of the House, as recently as this last Sunday, I'm not going to have the House vote on this bipartisan proposal unless we're moving ahead on the reconciliation. Are they linked or not?
They address different issues. So the bipartisan infrastructure package addresses issues such as rebuilding our roads, highways, bridges, as well as broadband. The reconciliation package addresses issues such as elder care, education, creating jobs through retraining people with different skills. So they're just different bills, and I'm confident both bills will reach the president's desk.
Okay, Congressman, to make a turn here, we saw, I will characterize it, just my words, a harrowing testimony yesterday from 4 Capitol Hill police officers in that select committee that the Speaker of the House convened to look into the events of January 6th when there was the attack on the Capitol. You have a lot of experience in this area. You were a senior JAG officer in the Air Force and prosecuted for the military. In addition, you also led the prosecution of the Donald Trump impeachment in the House. As a former prosecutor, as somebody who's conducted the investigations and has prosecuted some of these cases, what would you like to see come out of this hearing?
I thought the January 6th Select Committee did a terrific job because they let the witnesses speak for themselves. And that's what you want to do as a former prosecutor. You want the witnesses to be able to speak. And what we heard were police officers who risked their lives on January 6th say very clearly it was Trump supporters who assaulted the police and brutalized them. So I'm just going to be very clear. These were Trump supporters that attacked the police. What I'd like to know now is, why did the former president watch this assault on police officers and on the Capitol and not order in the National Guard for hours and hours? So those, I think, are important facts we need to uncover, and I hope they get witnesses who can testify to that.
Well, that was going to be my question. If you were putting together a witness list, and I understand you're not on the Select Committee, who would you put on that witness list? I did see the Department of Justice said that they're not planning on asserting any sort of privilege for former members of the Trump administration.
When we did the impeachment proceedings in the Senate, it was very clear to us that there were people in the room with the former president when all of this was happening on TV. For example, the chief of staff was there. So I think they should call the chief of staff. We know there was a conversation between the former president and GOP leader Kevin McCarthy. I think they should consider calling GOP leader Kevin McCarthy and find out what were they talking about? Why did they wait so long before the National Guard was ordered in by the president?
What would be the end game? Again, if you were running this whole thing, what would you hope to come out of this? How could we make the country a better place? How could we make the Congress a safer place?
The end game is pretty simple. Let's just get the truth, whatever that truth is. We need to find out what led up to January 6th, what happened on January 6th, and what the consequences are of January 6th. It's just getting the truth out to the American people.
So, Congressman, do you have any sense of the timing on what comes next? We've had that first hearing, but is this going to happen over a period of months, even years? What sort of timing do you have for something this elaborate?
It won't be years. It'll be months, but we do have to make sure that no stone is left unturned, and we're going to explore different witnesses. And all the folks who are testifying, They're doing it under oath. There's going to be documents that are going to be produced, and then American people can judge for themselves on the credibility of what they're seeing. The testimony yesterday was quite powerful from police officers who risked their lives and telling the American people exactly what happened on January 6th.
We had a 9/11 investigation after 9/11 that was truly bipartisan. There's been a back and forth here between the minority leader, Mr. McCarthy, and the Speaker of the House on the other hand. So you have two Republicans who've been appointed by the Speaker, not by Mr. McCarthy. Do you expect more Republicans to be added to the Select Committee? Should they be?
Republicans are certainly welcome to join this Select Committee. Speaker Pelosi and Kevin McCarthy did agree on 3 additional Republicans. However, Leader McCarthy chose to rescind those 3 Republicans. At the end of the day, I think Americans are less concerned about the process and more concerned about what are these witnesses actually saying, what actually happened on January 6th, and the documents that will be produced.
One last quick question. Are we going to get the money appropriated to beef up the defenses? Because that's been pending for some time.
We are trying very hard in the House and Senate to do exactly that. I just want to note, today the Republicans had a motion to adjourn Congress. They want to literally shut down Congress instead of working to crush the virus, create jobs, and get government funded.
Okay, Congressman, really appreciate your time today. That's Representative Ted Lieu, Democrat of California.